Welcome to Payback with Silas. Every day, a new story, lies, betrayal, payback. Let's begin.
I gave them 27 years. Built the division from scratch. Closed the deals no one else could. And in the end, I got a cardboard box and a sentence I'll never forget. Your methods are too traditional, Mr. Royce. We're moving in a different direction. That's when I knew. She had no idea who she'd just fired. My name's Calder Royce. I'm 55 years old. And for nearly 3 decades, I helped build Corvelli's Dynamics into what it is today, a multi-billion-dollar defense tech firm headquartered in Portland, Oregon. I was there before the skyline view, before the glass elevators and catered sushi. When we shared office space with a payday loan company and ran our servers out of a broom closet. Back when grit mattered more than pitch decks. I wasn't a prodigy. I was a Marine, 8 years, 4 deployments. When I got out, I went to school on the GI Bill, waited tables at night, and clawed my way into the corporate world through the side door. I joined Corvelli's in '98 as their 13th employee. My first desk was a folding table. My first sale kept the lights on for another 2 months. Over the years, I built our government contracts division from a one-man operation into a team that brought in nearly half of the company's annual revenue. I wasn't flashy. Never tried to be. But I got results. And that Monday morning, all of that got erased in under 3 minutes. Her name was Sloan Maddox. Freshly minted CEO. 41 years old, all sharp suits and sharper opinions. The board brought her in to modernize the company, whatever that means. She came from Silicon Valley, had an ego big enough to cast shadows in 2 time zones, and a reputation for cutting old wood. I guess that's what I was to her, old wood. She didn't look up from her laptop when I walked into her office. Calder, she said, like we'd known each other for years. We hadn't. We're restructuring. Your team's vertical isn't aligned with our new vision. Your methods are too traditional. We're moving in a different direction. That was it. 27 years, boiled down to a script. I didn't blink. Didn't flinch. Just nodded. Understood, I said, and stood up. I packed my things into a single box. A photo of my daughters from when they were still little. A plaque for closing the Havelock deal. My grandfather's fountain pen. That was all I took. No speeches. No bitterness. I shook hands with my team on the way out, one by one. They were stunned. I could see it in their eyes, the disbelief, the quiet panic. And Sloan? She thought she'd just removed a piece from the board. She didn't know I owned part of it. Back in 2001, when the company was too cash-strapped to give me bonuses, I asked for stock. Preferred shares. Not a lot at the time, just over 8%. I kept accumulating over the years, slowly, quietly. Other executives sold theirs. I never did. By the time she fired me, I owned 37% of Corvelli's Dynamics. I wasn't just an old executive. I was the second largest stakeholder in the company. She didn't ask. Didn't check. Didn't even know. But she was about to learn. 3 days. That's how long it took before the board realized what had happened. I spent those 3 days in my study at home, sipping black coffee, flipping through old notebooks full of contact names, and doing something I hadn't done in over a decade, sleeping in. Not out of laziness, but clarity. I didn't need to rush. The wheels were already turning, they just didn't know it yet. On the morning of the 4th day, I got the call. Unknown number. But I already knew who it was. Calder, this is Bryce Terman from the board. We, just heard about your departure. Can we speak privately? I said I was available in an hour. I made coffee, put on the same gray sport coat I wore the day I signed my first contract with Corvelli's, and drove to the building I helped build, not physically, but brick by brick, deal by deal. When I stepped out of the elevator on the 31st floor, I could feel the tension. The assistants gave me side glances. One of them, Sarah, I think, mouthed, "What's going on?" as I walked by. I just smiled. The boardroom was full. 10 men and women who hadn't paid me much attention in years were suddenly leaning forward like school kids at a fire drill. Bryce stood. "Calder, first of all, this was not how we intended to handle things. There's been a misunderstanding." I sat. Calm. Hands folded. What part was misunderstood? The firing? Or the fact that no one bothered to consult the man who holds over a third of your voting stock? Silence. A few exchanged looks. Bryce glanced at Carter Lynn, the CFO, his face had the color of wet chalk. "Sloan wasn't made aware of your holdings. She acted on an internal directive to streamline executive roles." I raised an eyebrow. "And your internal directive includes removing the only team responsible for 48% of last year's net revenue?" More silence. They hadn't done their homework. She certainly hadn't. "She removed my entire vertical without due process," I continued. "No vote. No briefing. No model. Just a PowerPoint pitch and buzzwords. And now she's rerouting funding toward an AI platform we don't even own yet." Bryce cleared his throat. "What exactly are you asking for, Calder?" I smiled. "Nothing," I said. "You already made your decision." A ripple of confusion passed across the table. "I'm not coming back," I continued. "You let someone cut out the spine of your company without asking where it was attached. That's not a mistake, that's a failure of leadership." I stood. Adjusted my jacket. "But I will be voting at the next shareholders' meeting. And I will be speaking to the press. Let's see how your investors respond to that." It was a checkmate. They just hadn't realized it yet. On the way out, I passed Sloan Maddox in the hallway. She was mid-conversation with someone from product strategy, but she stopped when she saw me. "Mr. Royce," she said, like nothing had happened. "Did you forget something?" I looked at her. Calm. Steady. "No," I said. "But you did." And I walked away. Loyalty isn't something you can buy. But it's something you can lose real fast. I wasn't planning to take anyone with me. That was never the goal. I didn't leave Corvelli's to prove a point. I left because they made it clear that values like loyalty, grit, and quiet consistency had no place in their new direction. But word spreads fast, faster than I expected. First came the texts. Quiet. Curious. Devin Muir, my old lead strategist. 29. Smart as hell, cocky in all the right ways. "Hey, Calder. You serious about staying out? Or are you building something?" Then Fletcher Monroe, the analytics guy I practically raised from intern to team lead. I read the Q2 brief. She's gutting ops. What the hell is happening? By Friday, I had a dinner scheduled at Delaney's with 3 of my former team. They showed up late, like they didn't want to be seen together, and they talked like people who knew they were sitting on a sinking ship. "She's firing from the hip," Mira said. "Rerouting everything into a product that doesn't exist yet." "And what about the DARPA deal?" I asked. They looked at each other. "Terminated," Devin muttered. "They didn't like the leadership shift. Pulled out yesterday. That was a $70 million contract. Gone in a week." Fletcher leaned in. "If you're doing something, Calder, we want in." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at them. These were good people. The kind who stayed late without being asked. The kind who knew what mattered wasn't press releases, but results. "You sure about that?" I finally said. "Walking away means walking all the way. You don't get to run back if things get tough." They didn't flinch. I nodded. All right. Monday. 9 a.m. My place. By the following Monday, I had 6 people in my living room. Laptops open. Whiteboards leaning against the walls. Ideas buzzing. It felt like '98 again, only now, we weren't kids. We knew exactly what we were doing. I called it Roy Strategic Technologies. Quiet launch. No fanfare. But within 2 weeks, we had a working prototype for a logistics AI model that could outperform what Sloan had promised by 11%. And then came the real moment. A message from one of Corvelli's biggest private clients. A discreet, one-line email. If you're starting something new, we'd like to talk. That was the beginning of the end, not for me. For them. I didn't have to poach. They came looking. I didn't need to destroy Corvelli's. They were doing a fine job of that on their own. All I had to do was exist, and quietly outperform them. Within a month of launching Roy Strategic Technologies, we had 5 high-level proposals out to market. 2 were signed in under 10 days. One was from a former Corvelli's client who'd called me directly, saying, "We want results, not TED Talks." Meanwhile, Corvelli's was bleeding from every angle. The press caught wind of the internal chaos first. A leaked memo about Sloan slashing R&D budget by 40% in favor of a vaporware AI platform caused panic in investor circles. Then came the layoffs, not strategic ones, either. Mass, confused, and badly managed. I got a text from Mira one night around 11. They just cut half of sales ops. No warning. People were crying at their desks. And the board? They were scrambling. Trying to do damage control without admitting they'd handed the company to someone who didn't understand what it was. By the end of the quarter, Corvelli's missed earnings for the first time in 8 years. Stock dropped 14% in 2 days. But the real hit came when the Department of Defense backed out of a renewal contract, one I had personally maintained for 15 years. That deal alone kept 2 entire divisions afloat. Without it, Corvelli's wasn't just hurting, it was sinking. Then came the investor calls. Sloan had no answers. Her vision had holes big enough to walk through. And the people who once praised her for her innovative thinking started using words like overextended, reckless, and unfit. The final straw came 2 months after my departure. A public letter from a minority stakeholder coalition demanding a vote of no confidence. I wasn't behind it, but I didn't stop it either. See, once you show people you don't know what you're doing, they stop pretending to follow. And once you prove you can't steer the ship, they jump. Back at Roy Strategic, we were thriving. I wasn't just building a company, I was building a new standard. We didn't take meetings that should have been emails. We didn't pitch dreams, we delivered blueprints. Our systems worked. Our clients were happy. My people were paid well, respected, and trusted. It wasn't flashy. But it was real. And that was enough. One evening, I was closing up when I got a call from a familiar number. Sloan Maddox. I stared at the screen for a moment, then answered. Calder, she said, tone clipped but measured, I'd like to talk. Off the record. I leaned back in my chair. Now that the floor's on fire, you want to talk. I made a mistake, she said. You and I both know this industry doesn't forgive them easily. There was a long pause. Then she added something I didn't expect. I thought you were just another legacy suit. I didn't realize you were the legacy. That almost made me laugh. Legacy's just a word for what people remember when you're not in the room, I said. You forgot who built your house, Sloan. I just moved next door and made mine stronger. Click. I didn't need revenge. I already had peace. You don't really understand what you built. Until someone tries to tear it down. After the call with Sloan, I sat in my office for a long time. No music. No screens. Just silence and the sound of a single wall clock ticking, the same one that used to hang in my first office at Corvelli's. I took it with me when I left. Not out of spite. Out of memory. She had finally said it. I was the legacy. Funny thing is, I never cared about being remembered. I cared about doing things right. About building something that outlives the quarterly reports. About hiring people who wouldn't be afraid to speak the truth to my face, and giving them a reason to stay. But for years, I played quiet. Took the back seat in press releases. Let other people speak on my behalf. I was the guy who delivered, not the guy they posted about. That's what Sloane didn't understand. To her, power was the microphone. To me, it was the ability to say nothing. And still have everyone listen. A week after that call, Mira stopped by my house. She brought me an envelope, thick, old school, with my name handwritten on the front. Inside was a letter from Dan Ferris, a now retired VP I hadn't spoken to in 6 years. The man who had originally recruited me into Corvelli's back in '98. It read. You did more for that company than anyone ever gave you credit for. You didn't just build the division. You built the culture. You made people want to belong to something. Don't let them erase that. And don't think for a second that people didn't notice. I folded the letter slowly, carefully, like it was something sacred. Because it was. You see, legacy isn't what you leave in your bank account. It's what you leave behind in people. The ones who still carry your lessons in how they lead. The ones who hear your voice in a quiet moment before a hard decision. The ones who saw you walk out with a cardboard box. And followed not because they had to. But because they believed. Now, Royce Strategic is 23 employees strong. We're still small. Still hungry. Still doing things by hand when the world wants to automate every last drop of soul out of the work. But our name's on 6 contracts now. 2 of them used to belong to Corvelli's. And the last time I checked, their stock hasn't recovered. The press keeps spinning new narratives. A cautionary tale of overmodernization. The fall of a tech darling. They throw out buzzwords like disruption fatigue and misaligned vision. But I don't read that noise anymore. I read people. I listen to my team. And I sleep damn well at night. Because when they tried to erase my legacy, they forgot one thing. I wasn't the story. I was the foundation. People always expect a firework at the end. Some kind of grand revenge. A takedown. A headline. But I didn't need any of that. You know what real power looks like. It's not slamming the door behind you. It's building your own house so solidly that the people who pushed you out start knocking at your door. It's been a year now since I left Corvelli's. Sloane Maddox was removed by the board 6 months after the shareholder vote. Not fired, repositioned. That's the word they used. A gentle phrase for someone who miscalculated everything. I heard she tried to spin it as choosing new opportunities. Maybe she even believed that. Doesn't matter. Because the company she tried to reshape in her image is now a shadow of what it once was. The media moved on. So did most of the talent. Investors pulled out quietly. And the board? They're still too proud to admit they let the wrong person steer the ship straight into the rocks. But I never looked back. Royce Strategic just signed a multi-year deal with a major aerospace partner, one we used to fight tooth and nail to win at Corvelli's. They came to us this time. No pitch needed. Just reputation. My team is stronger than it ever was. You can feel it, in the meetings, in the late nights, in the calm after a big win. We've got something rare here, belief. Not in hype. Not in personality cults. In each other. Last week, I got an email. No subject line. No signature. It just said. You were right. I thought I had to lead louder. But you led deeper. I didn't need a name to know who it was from. I didn't reply. There was nothing left to say. See, dignity doesn't roar. It doesn't post. It doesn't perform. It stands still. It endures. It waits, and it wins. People will try to take what you've built. People will underestimate you because you're quiet, or old, or don't speak in jargon. Let them. Because when the dust settles, when the flashy ideas fade, when the trend passes, what remains is what's real. And what's real can't be erased. I'm Calder Royce. And I didn't come back to prove them wrong. I came back to prove that doing it right still matters.